Sir, let me see some ID right now.
This is my house. You're standing in my backyard.
You can clear that up real fast. Just hand me your license.
I don't have it on me. I walked out from inside. But I can show you the mail with my name.
No, I need government ID, not mail. Let's not make this harder.
Officer, again, I own this home.
You're welcome to wait.
Imagine standing in your own backyard, the place you paid for, the grass you mowed, the fence you built with your own hands, and someone demands you prove you belong there. Not a neighbor stopping by with a casserole. Not a friend dropping in unannounced. Police officers, hands near holsters, voices sharp, eyes suspicious. This is the story of Marcus Richardson, a 58-year-old black man, retired Army sergeant, Bronze Star recipient, 32-year homeowner in suburban Denver, Colorado, who was detained, interrogated, and nearly arrested in his own backyard while watering his garden on a Sunday afternoon in July. His crime? Existing while black, in a neighborhood that couldn't believe he lived there. The fallout wasn't just embarrassing, it was seismic. A viral body cam video, a federal lawsuit, a police chief's resignation, and a question that still burns. How many times does this happen when the cameras aren't rolling? Before we continue, what city are you watching from? If this is your first time listening, support the channel by liking and subscribing. Stories like this need to be heard, and with your help, we can make sure these events don't go unheard. Marcus Richardson didn't stumble into success. He earned it, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, deployment by deployment. Born in 1965 in rural Louisiana, Marcus was the youngest of 5 children raised by a single mother who worked double shifts at a textile factory. He watched her collapse into bed at midnight, only to rise again at 5 a.m., and he made himself a promise. I will never let my family live paycheck to paycheck. At 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Army, not because he was passionate about military strategy or dreamed of battlefield glory, but because it was a ladder out, a way to gain skills, discipline, and a future that didn't depend on the whims of factory owners or the limitations of a segregated southern town. He served for 23 years, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. He rose to the rank of sergeant, leading a logistics unit that kept supply lines open in some of the most hostile regions on Earth. In 2007, his convoy was ambushed outside Fallujah. Marcus pulled 2 wounded soldiers from a burning vehicle under enemy fire. He received the Bronze Star with valor, but he never hung it on his wall. He kept it in a drawer, wrapped in the same tissue paper it arrived in, because to Marcus, heroism wasn't about medals. It was about getting your people home alive. When he retired in 2015, he moved to Ridgemont Hills, a quiet suburban neighborhood 15 miles outside Denver. Tree-lined streets, well-kept lawns, good schools nearby for when his grandchildren visited. He bought a modest 2-story colonial house with a wraparound porch and a spacious backyard. He paid $340,000 for it, money saved over decades of military service, careful budgeting, and a veteran's housing loan. He became a fixture in the neighborhood. He mowed his lawn every Saturday. He waved to joggers. He kept his hedges trimmed and his driveway clean. He even volunteered to help his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, fix her fence after a windstorm. Marcus Richardson was the kind of neighbor people usually call a blessing, except some people couldn't see him as a neighbor at all. Ridgemont Hills wasn't always white, but by 2023, it was 81% white, 12% Hispanic, 4% Asian, and 3% black. The kind of place where a black man jogging after dark might get followed by a concerned resident, where a black teenager walking through the neighborhood could expect someone to ask, "Do you live here?" It wasn't overtly hostile, it was subtly exclusionary. Marcus had felt it before. The double takes at the grocery store, the slight hesitation when he introduced himself at HOA meetings, the way some neighbors would smile but never quite invite him to the backyard barbecues they threw every summer. But he'd learned to navigate it. He didn't make waves, he didn't push, he just lived his life, confident that time and consistency would prove he belonged. On Sunday, July the 16th, 2023, that confidence was shattered. It was 3:47 p.m. The sun hung heavy in a cloudless sky. the kind of dry Denver heat that made the grass thirsty and the shade precious. Marcus was in his backyard wearing a faded army t-shirt, cargo shorts, and sandals. He had a green garden hose in one hand, watering the vegetable garden he'd planted in May. Tomatoes, cucumbers, bell peppers. He liked the rhythm of it, the sound of water hitting soil, the smell of wet earth, the simple satisfaction of watching things grow. He didn't notice the figure watching him from the street, a white woman in her mid-40s, walking a small terrier, had stopped at the edge of his property. She stood there for a full minute, staring through the gap in his fence. Then she pulled out her phone and she called 911. The 911 call was later released to the public. The woman's voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes from absolute certainty that you're doing the right thing. Yes, hi. I'm calling because there's a suspicious person in my neighbor's backyard. The dispatcher asked for details. I'm on Maple Grove Drive. The house is 4427. There's a black male in the backyard, and I don't think he lives there. Has he threatened you? No, but he's just standing there, watering the lawn or something. I've never seen him before. The dispatcher paused. Ma'am, is it possible he does live there? I don't think so. I walk this street every day. I know who lives here. This doesn't seem right. She didn't know Marcus. She'd never spoken to him, never waved, never bothered to introduce herself, but she was certain, absolutely certain, that he didn't belong. The dispatcher said officers would be sent to investigate. The woman thanked her and hung up. She stood there for another moment, watching Marcus through the fence. Then she walked away, the leash taut in her hand, the terrier trotting beside her. She felt like a good citizen. She felt like she prevented something. She had no idea what she just set in motion. Marcus first heard the voices from the side yard. Sir, can you come over here? He turned off the hose and walked toward the fence, assuming maybe a neighbor needed help or had a question about trash pickup day. When he rounded the corner, he saw them, 2 police officers, both white, both standing just outside his property line with hands resting on their duty belts. One was older, mid-40s, with a crew cut and sunglasses pushed up on his head. The other was younger, late 20s, with a nervous energy that made his hand hover near his holster. Can I help you? Marcus asked. The older officer spoke first. We got a call about someone in this backyard. Do you live here? Marcus blinked. Yes, I live here. Can you prove that? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He'd been in enough high-pressure situations to recognize the shift in energy, the moment when cooperation was no longer optional. Prove it, he repeated. Yes, sir. We need to see some ID. Marcus gestured toward the house. My ID's inside. I was just watering my garden. We'll need you to go get it. There was no please, no apology, no acknowledgement that demanding ID from a man standing in his own backyard might be unreasonable. Marcus nodded slowly. All right, let me go inside. We'll accompany you, the younger officer said. Excuse me? We'll accompany you inside to retrieve your ID. Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just disbelief. You want to come inside my house? Standard procedure, sir. It wasn't standard procedure. It was an escalation. And Marcus knew it. Marcus led them to the back door. He unlocked it and stepped inside, both officers following close behind. The younger one kept his hand on his holster. The older one scanned the kitchen like he was expecting to find evidence of a crime. Marcus's house was immaculate. Hardwood floors, clean countertops, a framed photo of him in dress uniform, shaking hands with a commanding officer, another photo of his late wife smiling in front of the Grand Canyon. The older officer glanced at the photos but said nothing. Marcus walked to the entryway table and grabbed his wallet. He pulled out his driver's license and handed it over. The officer studied it, checked the address, looked at Marcus, looked at the license again. This says 4427 Maple Grove Drive. That's right. And you're Marcus Richardson? Yes. The officer handed the license to his partner, who pulled out a tablet and started typing. Marcus stood there, waiting. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Is there a problem? Marcus finally asked. Just verifying the information. Verifying what? That I live in my own house? The older officer's jaw tightened. Sir, we're just doing our job. Your job is to harass homeowners? We received a call. A call from who? A concerned citizen. Concerned about what? A man watering his garden? The younger officer looked up from the tablet. Sir, I need you to calm down. Marcus felt the words like a slap. Calm down. He'd heard it his whole life. The universal phrase used to gaslight black men into silence. I am calm, Marcus said, his voice steady but cold. What I'm not is okay with being treated like a criminal in my own home. No one's treating you like a criminal. Then why are you in my kitchen demanding proof that I live here? The officers exchanged a glance. The younger one spoke again. The address checks out. Marcus Richardson, age 58, homeowner since 2015. The older officer nodded. All right, we're good here. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of the absurdity. They just turned and walked toward the door. Marcus followed them. That's it? You're just leaving? We responded to a call. We verified your identity. We're done. Who called? We can't disclose that. Someone called the police on me for being in my own backyard, and you can't tell me who. The older officer stopped at the door and turned. For the first time, there was something almost sympathetic in his expression. Look, I get it, but we have to respond to every call, you understand. Marcus didn't understand. He understood that his neighbor could call 911 with no evidence, no threat, no crime, and he would still be subjected to an interrogation in his own home. He understood that his military service, his clean record, his 32 years of paying taxes and following the law didn't matter when someone decided he looked suspicious. He understood that he could do everything right and still be seen as wrong. What Marcus didn't know, what the officers didn't mention, was that their body cams had been recording the entire encounter. Departmental policy required it, and under Colorado's public records law, that footage could be requested by anyone. 3 days later, Marcus filed a formal complaint with the Denver Police Department. He described the incident in detail, the unwarranted interrogation, the invasion of his home, the humiliation of being treated like a suspect. The department responded with a standard letter. We take all complaints seriously and will conduct a thorough review. Marcus didn't expect much, but then his grandson, a 22-year-old college student studying media production, had an idea. Grandpa, file a public records request for the body cam footage. If they recorded it, we can get it. Marcus did. 2 weeks later, the footage arrived, and when they watched it, Marcus felt his blood run cold. Because the body cam captured everything, the condescending tone, the lack of probable cause, the officers entering his home without a warrant or exigent circumstances, but more than that, it captured the moment after they left. As the officers walked back to their patrol car, the older one muttered to his partner, "That guy was pissed." The younger one laughed. "What did he expect? Someone called it in." "Yeah, but come on. He obviously lives there. So, we still gotta check." "I guess, but if I were him, I'd be pissed too." They climbed into the car, and then the older officer said something that would change everything. Rich neighborhood like this, people get nervous when they see someone who doesn't fit. It is what it is. The younger officer didn't respond. The car pulled away. The body cam footage ended, but the damage was done. Marcus's grandson didn't just watch the footage, he edited it. He cut it down to a 5-minute video that included the initial confrontation, the demand for ID, the officers entering the home, and the damning conversation afterward. He added captions, context, a title card that read, "Retired Army Sergeant interrogated in his own backyard." He posted it on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Within 24 hours, it had 200,000 views. Within 48 hours, 1.2 million. Within a week, it had been viewed over 8 million times. The comment section exploded. This is what happens when Karens have 911 on speed dial. A Bronze Star recipient, and they treat him like a criminal. Disgusting. Doesn't fit the neighborhood? Say what you really mean. This man served our country, and this is how we repay him. National news outlets picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Local Denver stations, civil rights organizations issued statements. The ACLU of Colorado called it a textbook example of racial profiling enabled by biased policing. The NAACP demanded an investigation. Veterans advocacy groups rallied around Marcus, and the woman who made the 911 call, she was identified within 72 hours. Her name was Jennifer Calloway. She was a marketing consultant. She lived 4 houses down from Marcus. She deleted all her social media accounts. She issued a public apology that read, "I made a terrible mistake. I reacted out of fear and ignorance. I am deeply sorry." But the internet doesn't forgive easily. Her employer put her on leave pending an internal review. Her neighbors started leaving notes on her door. She moved out of Ridgemont Hills within a month. The Denver Police Department was in crisis mode. The video had gone viral during a year already marked by heightened scrutiny of police conduct. This wasn't a violent encounter. No one was shot. No one was physically harmed. But that almost made it worse because it exposed the casual, everyday nature of racial profiling, the kind that doesn't make headlines unless someone has the footage to prove it. The department issued a statement. "We are aware of the incident involving Mr. Marcus Richardson and are conducting a full internal review. We are committed to equitable policing and will take appropriate action based on our findings." It was corporate, sterile, safe. It satisfied no one. Protesters gathered outside police headquarters. Signs read, "Black homeowners deserve peace. Stop criminalizing existence. Fire the officers. Fire the chief." Inside, the department was scrambling. The 2 officers involved were placed on administrative leave. The older officer, whose comment about people not fitting had been caught on camera, was reassigned to desk duty pending the outcome of the investigation. But the pressure kept building. City council members called for accountability. The mayor held a press conference and called the incident unacceptable. And then Marcus Richardson did something unexpected. He didn't just file a complaint, he filed a federal lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Colorado. Marcus Richardson versus City of Denver, Denver Police Department, Officer Blake Harmon, Officer Kyle Jensen. The complaint was 47 pages long. It alleged 4th Amendment violations, unlawful search and seizure, 14th Amendment violations, denial of equal protection under the law, racial profiling, failure to train and supervise intentional infliction of emotional distress. Marcus wasn't asking for an apology. He was asking for $2.5 million in damages, and he was asking for systemic change. The lawsuit demanded mandatory implicit bias training for all officers, policy changes regarding responses to non-emergency suspicious person, calls public reporting of all racial profiling complaints, community oversight of the police department. Marcus's attorney, a prominent civil rights lawyer named Elena Vargas, held a press conference. "This isn't just about Marcus Richardson," she said. "This is about every black and brown person who has been made to feel like a criminal in their own home, their own neighborhood, their own skin. We will not settle for empty statements. We want real change." The city fought back. Their attorneys argued that the officers were responding to a legitimate 911 call and followed standard procedures. They claimed qualified immunity, the legal doctrine that shields government officials from liability unless they violated a clearly established constitutional right. But the body cam footage was damning, and public opinion was not on their side. The case never went to trial. 8 months after the lawsuit was filed, the city of Denver agreed to settle. The terms: $1.8 million paid to Marcus Richardson, a formal public apology from the police chief and the mayor, implementation of new policies, including a review process for all suspicious person, calls to determine if they're racially motivated before dispatching officers, mandatory training on implicit bias and constitutional policing, a public dashboard tracking racial profiling complaints. Officer Blake Harmon, the one who made the "doesn't fit" comment, was terminated. Officer Kyle Jensen received a 30-day suspension without pay and was required to complete additional training before returning to duty. And the police chief, he resigned. Not because he was forced to, but because the optics were too toxic, the public trust too fractured. At a press conference announcing the settlement, Marcus stood alongside his attorney and spoke to a room full of cameras and reporters. This was never about the money, he said. This was about dignity. This was about being seen as a human being instead of a threat. I served this country for 23 years. I earned my place in this neighborhood, in this city, in this society. But I shouldn't have to prove that in my own backyard. He paused. I hope this case makes people think twice before calling 911 on someone just because they look different. I hope it makes officers think twice before treating people like criminals without cause. And I hope it reminds everyone that Black people have a right to exist without suspicion, without interrogation, without fear. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus didn't smile because he knew the truth. This case was over, but the problem wasn't. Marcus Richardson's story is not unique. It's part of a pattern that stretches across the country. In 2018, a Black man in San Francisco was reported to police for moving into his own apartment building. In 2019, a Black real estate investor in Memphis was arrested while inspecting a property he owned. In 2020, a Black doctor in Miami was handcuffed outside her home while treating a homeless patient. In 2021, a Black man in North Carolina was detained while bird watching in a public park. In 2022, a Black family in California had the police called on them while having a barbecue in a public park. The pattern is undeniable. Black people are seen as out of place, suspicious, threatening, even in spaces they own, even in spaces they've earned, even in spaces where they have every right to be. And when white people call 911 on Black people for existing, they face no consequences. Jennifer Calloway faced social backlash. She lost her job. She moved, but she was never charged with filing a false police report. She was never fined. She faced no legal consequences for weaponizing law enforcement against a man whose only crime was being Black in his own backyard. And that's the real problem, because as long as white people can call the police on Black people with impunity, this will keep happening. As long as police officers respond to these calls without questioning the racial bias behind them, this will keep happening. As long as suspicious is code for Black, this will keep happening. Here's what haunts Marcus Richardson. It's not the encounter itself. It's not the officers. It's not even Jennifer Calloway. It's the question that keeps him up at night. How many times has this happened when there was no body cam footage? How many Black men have been detained, interrogated, humiliated in their own homes and had no proof? How many times have officers made comments like, doesn't fit the neighborhood, with no one to hold them accountable? How many Jennifer Callaways are out there calling 911 on Black people without consequence, without guilt, without hesitation? The body cam saved Marcus, but most people don't have that. Most people don't have a grandson who knows how to file public records requests. Most people don't have a viral video. Most people don't have $1.8 million settlements and policy changes. Most people just have the memory, the humiliation, the reminder that no matter what they achieve, no matter what they earn, no matter how much they contribute, someone, somewhere will always see them as a threat. Marcus Richardson still lives at 4,427 Maple Grove Drive. He still waters his garden on Sunday afternoons, but now he keeps his phone in his pocket. He records every interaction with neighbors. He's hyper aware of who's watching, who's walking by, who might decide he doesn't belong. He doesn't wave as much anymore. He doesn't volunteer to help with fences. He keeps to himself because trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Officer Blake Harmon was fired but never faced criminal charges. He filed a grievance with the police union but ultimately withdrew it. He now works in private security. Officer Kyle Jensen returned to duty after his suspension. He completed the required training. He's still a Denver police officer. Jennifer Calloway deleted her LinkedIn, moved to Arizona, and has not spoken publicly about the incident since her initial apology. The body cam footage is still online, still viewed thousands of times a day, still shared in criminal justice courses, diversity trainings, and civil rights seminars. And the settlement money? Marcus donated $500,000 of it to veteran housing programs and organizations that provide legal aid to victims of police misconduct. The rest he put into a trust for his grandchildren. Because if there's one thing Marcus Richardson learned, it's that money can't buy dignity, but it can fund the fight for it. Let's go back to the beginning. A man in his backyard, watering his garden, minding his own business, and someone decides he doesn't belong. This is the reality for millions of Black Americans. Not every day, not in every neighborhood, but often enough that it's not shocking. Often enough that when you see the headline, you're not surprised. Often enough that Marcus Richardson's story is one of hundreds, maybe thousands, that happen every year. The question isn't whether this was wrong. It was. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to keep calling 911 on people whose only crime is being Black in a space we don't expect them? Are we going to keep sending police officers to interrogate homeowners based on nothing but racial suspicion? Are we going to keep shrugging this off as an isolated incident, a misunderstanding, an unfortunate mistake? Or are we going to acknowledge the truth that this is systemic, that this is cultural, that this is a problem we created and a problem we need to fix? Marcus Richardson shouldn't have needed a viral video to be believed. He shouldn't have needed a lawsuit to get justice. He shouldn't have needed a settlement to prove he deserved respect. He should have been able to water his garden in peace. That's not too much to ask, but for too many Black Americans, it's still too much to expect. So here's the final question. What would you do if it was your backyard? If you'd served your country, paid your dues, followed every rule, and someone still called the police on you for existing? Would you stay? Would you fight? Or would you finally accept that no matter what you do, some people will never see you as anything other than a threat? Think about it. And if this story made you uncomfortable, good, it should, because uncomfortable is where change begins. If this story opened your eyes, don't let it end here. Like, subscribe, and share this video. Stories like Marcus's need to be heard, and algorithms bury what people don't engage with. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you want to support real investigative storytelling that holds power accountable, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.